Welcome to another edition of Begley's Mailbag here on SNY.TV. We'll answer your questions about the Knicks and the NBA. And we're going to start off with a question from Jason Meredith. And Jason asks, in a Cam Reddish trade, do the Knicks prefer to get back a second-round draft picks or add a second-round pick with Cam for a bench contributor such as Grayson Allen? I think the preference for the Knicks, obviously, is to get a player back for Reddish. I mean, I think that's ideal. Depending on the player and the fit. With regards to Grayson Allen, I haven't heard a ton on that front, but that doesn't mean they aren't interested in a player like Allen. But yeah, I think the preference would be to get back a player who can help you this season. But I think generally the baseline is getting a second-round pick back. And I think because teams know that, I'd be surprised if they were able to get a player back in a Reddish trade, unless you, again, sweeten the deal, as you suggest, adding a pick to that deal. Now, one thing that I've heard recently is that a number of teams have kind of standing offers of a second rounder into the Knicks on a Reddish deal. So I assume that it'll come down to the deadline where the Knicks try to get the best deal possible, but they do have a few standing offers for Reddish with regards to getting a second round pick back at the moment. We got one here from Hollywood Sino or Hollywood Sino. Why do the Knicks think they have negotiating power when it comes to the trade deadline? They themselves are the reason the players they're trying to move aren't of value to the rest of the league. This is a great point. I mean, look, they don't have negotiating power. I don't think anybody over there would say that they have an edge in negotiations, unless you're talking about trading a player who is playing well, like an Emmanuel Quickly, trading a player like Anunoby Toppin, who's young, but even with Toppin, I mean, you haven't played him a lot, and he's extension eligible this offseason, so I'm not sure that you have negotiating power there. But yeah, Fournier, Reddish, Derrick Rose, you don't have negotiating power with those players. It's not as if you're dealing from a position of strength there because of what Hollywood points out, the guys being out of the rotation, the value kind of being down around those players. For various reasons. So yeah, they're not going into this deadline dealing from a position of strength. When you look at those players, maybe Quickly is the only player that they kind of would have an upper hand on because of how he's played, because of his age. But those other situations, you know, I think teams would have an edge on the Knicks unless you're talking about a team that's looking for something else. Maybe they're looking for, you know, first round picks from the Knicks, and then the Knicks would have an edge. But seemingly, when you look at those players, what the Knicks are trying to do and what they've done with those players to date, yeah, they're dealing from a position of disadvantage, I would say, going into February 9th. So a good point from Hollywood. Got one from Knicks Rundown who wants to know, what's the possibility the Knicks select Carmelo Anthony to the team for the stretch run? With Carmelo, my thinking and understanding kind of has been that if he wants to be back here, if the scenario works out for both sides, he'll be back here. And so I think about it this way in terms of where he is there another team that's going to come calling for him after the trade deadline? And will he sign somewhere else with a playoff team, thinking that he'll have a role there in the postseason? Maybe that's the case. I'm not sure. I haven't heard of it. But if that doesn't come to fruition and he wants to get on an active roster, get on a roster this year, maybe before his retirement. I don't know where he is, but if that's the scenario, I could see the Knicks clearing a spot for him, maybe, you know, waiving one of the players at the end of their roster here and bringing him on and allowing him the chance to finish as an active player. I could see that happening just because of the relationship between Carmelo Anthony, team president Leon Rose, and so many others with the Knick organization. But I don't know what other offers Melo might have right now or after the deadline. I'm not sure where his thinking is, but I could see the Knicks, because of the relationship between Rose and others and Carmelo, wanting to give Carmelo that opportunity to end things on an active roster. So that's, I think, a scenario that at least is something to keep an eye on if you're thinking about Carmelo and the Knicks. Got another question here from @Shiz86. Shiz wants to know, is a first-round exit good enough for the Knicks staff to keep their jobs? If not, why not swing big at the deadline? My understanding, dating back to early December, was that if the Knicks hung around 500, a couple games over 500, over the course of the season, they didn't have any major losing streaks, any string of embarrassing losses, but they showed confidence that everybody would be happy with that, and everybody from Leon Rose on down would not be at risk of losing their jobs. They would have another year here to continue to build the team out. So I think that's the prism through which I view this whole thing. And if you talk about a first-round playoff exit, I think that's enough to keep these guys here and to maintain the stability of Leon Rose and his group going into another year. And so that's why I don't think that the Knicks, at least right now, we're sitting here right after a strong home win over the Cavs. And I don't think that at the moment they would feel the pressure to make a huge trade at the deadline. I do think that trade for a star is coming at some point, simply because this is how they've proceeded all along. But I'd be surprised if it happened right at this deadline because of where the Knicks are record-wise. Now, if they fall off a cliff between now and February, let's say 5th, maybe it's a different conversation. But at the moment, I'd be surprised if they swung big at the deadline. Got one from Benchwarmer Post, and Benchwarmer wants to know, out of these four, who do you think is most likely to be a Knick? Malik Beasley, OG Anunoby, Grayson Allen, Gary Trent Jr. Looking at those four, I'm going Grayson Allen only because I think he is the most available, the easiest to trade for of those four. When you talk about what you might have to give up, Milwaukee has been discussing trades involving Allen pretty much since the first few weeks of the season. So, yeah, he's available. Anunoby with Toronto, I mean, that would cost you a lot. That would cost you significant draft compensation. I don't know, maybe the Knicks are there. Maybe they're feeling like they can make the playoffs, make a big push. If you add Anunoby, I know we've reported they contacted Toronto on Anunoby, and I was told in that conversation they offered multiple firsts, but this was a while back. And this was, Toronto has done a lot since then, but I don't think the league is crystal clear on what they want to do on Anunoby. So that's why I put Allen over him. And then Beasley and Gary Trent Jr., similar. The price would be higher to get those guys than it would be to get a Grayson Allen. So I think that's that would be the most likely of those four. But again, it depends on where the Knicks are heading into that week prior to the deadline or a couple days prior to the deadline, where their record is. Are they skidding? Are they maintaining their current pace? So I think you have to wait and see where the Knicks are, let's say February 2nd, February 3rd, before you can get a real picture on how aggressive they'd be on a player like Anunoby heading into the deadline. That'll do it for this edition of Begley's Mailbag, but we'll be back next week, so keep those trade deadline questions coming. We'll be digging into more trade deadline info in that next edition of Begley's Mailbag.